You're standing on a line painted on the asphalt in Coronado. You've seen the movies, you've read the books, you don't fully understand it yet. You will. This is the start. For the Navy SEALs, the hierarchy begins before you're even a SEAL. It begins here, at Basic Underwater Demolition/SEAL Training, BUD/S. This is the filter. Your life becomes simple. You are cold, you are wet, you are sandy, and you are tired. You do what you are told. You run until your lungs feel like they're on fire. You do push-ups in the surf until your muscles give out. The instructors are a constant presence. They don't yell to break you. They speak, and they watch, and they wait for you to break yourself. They are looking for the point where your body quits and your mind has to decide what to do next. Near the entrance to the compound, there is a brass bell. All you have to do is ring it 3 times. A warm shower and a hot meal are waiting. No one will shame you.
You'll just be out. Then comes Hell Week. 5.5 days of constant motion. You will get, in total, maybe 4 hours of sleep. Your boat crew, the 7 men you carry a 200-pound inflatable boat with, becomes your world. You learn that the body breaks down in predictable ways. It's the mind that's different. The mind breaks first. This tier is the worst because there is no glory here. You don't carry a rifle, you carry a log. You are not a warrior, you are an applicant. The only thing you can win is the right to continue. For the few who don't ring the bell, the next level is waiting. Level 2, the new guy. You made it. You finished BUD/S. You completed SEAL qualification training, and an officer pins the Trident on your chest. The pin is sharp. He presses it in by hand, no backing. It draws blood. That's tradition. That's the point. You are now a Navy SEAL, and you are at the bottom again. Welcome to Level 2, the new guy, the NG. Or, more honestly, the FNG, the effing new guy. You're assigned to a SEAL team. These are the core of naval special warfare. Unofficially, people call them Tier 2 units. They are the backbone of the force. You might be an E4 petty officer, but your real job title is simple. Do what you're told. Shut up. Listen. You carry the heavy gear. You clean the weapons. You have the Trident, but you have no experience. The senior enlisted men, the chiefs, they watch you. They've seen hundreds of new guys. They're waiting to see if you're a liability or an asset. In a firefight, experience is what keeps people alive, and you have none. Your first deployment is a shock. The training was hard. This is real. The first time you're in a gunfight, it might only last 5 minutes, but it will feel like 5 hours. You'll learn more in that time than in all the months at BUD/S. You learn the sound of a round cracking past your ear. You learn to trust the quiet professionalism of the men next to you. No one congratulates you for doing your job. The debrief will last for hours, picking apart every single second. You have earned the title, but now you have to earn the respect. Level 3, the operator. You're on your 2nd or 3rd deployment. The new guy smell is gone. You're not a liability anymore. You are an operator. You are an E5, a petty officer 2nd class. Now, you start to specialize. A platoon needs more than just men with rifles. It needs experts. You might get sent to sniper school to learn the art of patience and a single perfect shot. You might go to breacher school and learn how to use explosives to open a door. Or you might become a special operations combat medic, the one everyone looks to when things go wrong. You understand the rhythm of a deployment now, long stretches of waiting, of watching, punctuated by moments of extreme violence and focus. This is also where the real cost starts to show. The skills that keep you alive on a mission don't work at home. The hypervigilance, the emotional control, they make you a stranger in your own life. The strain on families is immense. The divorce rate in the community is high, and it's at this stage you begin to understand why. You're becoming a better weapon, but you can feel the parts of the man you were starting to wear away. Level 4, the senior operator. You're an E6, a petty officer 1st class. You're a senior operator. With that comes a new kind of responsibility. You're now leading a four-man fire team. The new guys, the guys who were you just a few years ago, they look to you now. You're the bridge between the platoon chief and the junior operators. You take the chief's intent and you make sure it happens. You check the gear, you run the drills, you mentor the new men. You understand that missions are won in the hours of boring preparation.
You've seen what happens when teams get complacent, and you've sworn it won't happen on your watch. The romance of the job is gone. You've seen friends get hurt. You've been to their funerals. You're not fighting for a politician or an idea anymore. You're fighting for the man to your left and the man to your right. This is the transition from being a tool to being a craftsman. You're not just following the plan, you're helping to shape it. The lives of your men are now your responsibility. It's a heavy weight, but it's how you start to master the profession. Level 5, the Chief. This is the most important rank in the SEAL teams. Level 5, the Chief Petty Officer. As an E7, you are the senior enlisted man in a platoon of roughly 16 operators. You are the platoon chief. There's a saying in special operations: officers plan, chiefs execute. Your platoon commander, a lieutenant, is smart and well-trained. He's also probably 10 years younger than you. Your job is to make him effective without undermining his authority. It's one of the most complicated relationships in the military. You do it by making him look right when he is, and quietly steering him when he isn't. You don't need the credit. Your word is law for the platoon. You know the true capabilities of your men. You know who the best breacher is. You know who's having trouble at home. When a plan from a whiteboard meets the chaos of a real operation, you're the one who makes it work. The lives of 15 men are on your shoulders. When a mission goes right, the officer gets the medal. When it goes wrong, it's on you. You're at the peak of your career as a frontline operator, but it's a lonely job. You are their leader, but you are not one of them anymore. You are the shepherd, and you carry the weight of every single member of your flock. Level 6, the Tier 1 operator. To understand the next level, you have to understand the informal system the community uses. While all SEALs are elite, there is a small group of units designated for missions of the highest national importance. These are the Special Mission Units. In the community, this is known as Tier 1. For the Navy, this is the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU. You might know it by its old name, SEAL Team 6. This is Level 6. In terms of mission and capability, this is the best tier. DEVGRU operates under the Joint Special Operations Command, or JSOC. They are called for the most sensitive, high-risk missions the nation undertakes. Getting into DEVGRU requires another selection process. Only experienced operators from the regular SEAL teams, usually E6s and E7s, are invited to try out. The selection, called Green Team, is less about raw physical endurance and more about advanced problem-solving under extreme stress. It tests your mind as much as your body. Life at a unit like this is different. The resources are unparalleled.
They get the best weapons, the most advanced training, and they are tasked with developing the tactics that the rest of the special operations world will use years later. Their work is counterterrorism, hostage rescue, and direct action against high-value targets. To be an operator here is to be at the absolute tip of the spear. You are a national asset. The operational pace is relentless. The secrecy is total. You are a ghost. This is the pinnacle of the combat path. Level 7, the Senior Chief. After years at the platoon level or in the intense environment of a Tier 1 unit, the path changes. You're an E8 now, a Senior Chief Petty Officer. You're likely moving out of a frontline operational role. You're moving into a command-level job, coordinating training and deployments for multiple platoons. Your value is no longer measured by your performance on target. It's measured in spreadsheets, training schedules, and resource management. It's a difficult transition. You miss the clarity of the mission. You miss the brotherhood of the platoon. You're a manager now, a leader of leaders. The problems are no longer tactical. They are logistical and strategic. This is also the level where you have more time to think. You think about the men you lost. You think about the friends who left the teams and are struggling. You've seen the toll this job takes. The suicide rate among special operators is a tragic reality, and as a senior leader, you feel the weight of it. A young SEAL comes to you. He's thinking about getting out. He's not asking for an answer. He's just talking. You listen. Then you tell him about a night in a dark valley years ago when your own senior chief handed you a protein bar without a word, and how that was enough to keep going. You are the institutional memory of the teams. You are respected, but you are one step removed from the fight. For a man defined by the fight, that distance is its own kind of burden. Level Legs, the Master Chief. You've reached the top of the enlisted ranks, Level 8, the Master Chief Petty Officer, E9. You are the Command Master Chief, the senior enlisted advisor to the commander of a SEAL team, or even a Rear Admiral at Naval Special Warfare Command. You are the voice of the enlisted force. You sit in rooms with admirals and policymakers. You speak plainly. They listen because they know you have done the things they are only planning. You are the link between the policy on paper and the mud on the ground. A proposal comes across your desk to change the standards at BUD/S. The argument is about attrition rates and cost. It's a rational argument built on spreadsheets. You know something the spreadsheets don't. The standard is the whole point. A man who hasn't been broken by something will eventually break when other men's lives depend on him not breaking. You make your case. The proposal is shelved. You are a legend in the community.
But you are also a living record of the cost. Your knees are shot, your back hurts. There's a constant ringing in your ears. You've given your body to the teams. You have shaped the force for a generation. But the trident you've worn for decades has left its mark on your soul. Level 9, the officer. There is a parallel path, the officer's path. It carries a different kind of burden. It starts with the 03 lieutenant leading his platoon, working with his chief. It moves to the 05 commander in charge of an entire SEAL team, and then to the 06 captain, who commands a naval special warfare group of multiple teams. The pinnacle could be a 4-star admiral in charge of the entire U.S. Special Operations Command. While the enlisted SEAL is a master of execution, the officer is a master of planning, strategy, and navigating politics. He is responsible not just for winning the fight, but for answering why the fight was necessary in the first place. His career is one of escalating responsibility, moving from leading men on the ground to shaping the strategy of the entire special warfare community. It is a tier defined by the weight of authority. Level 10, the veteran. The final level is not a rank. It's a transition that every SEAL eventually makes. Level 10, the veteran. In many ways, it is the hardest level of all. You turn in your gear, the mission is over. The brotherhood, the structure, the adrenaline, it's all gone. You are left with your memories and your scars. The identity that defined you for decades is now in the past tense. You have to find a new purpose in a world that doesn't understand what you've done. The hypervigilance that kept you alive in a war zone is now just anxiety in a crowd. The emotional control that made you effective becomes a wall between you and your family. The trident you sacrificed everything for now represents a life that is over. This is the final paradox.
The job forges you into one of the most capable people on the planet, then asks you to become someone else entirely. It is a new fight, and it's fought alone, in the quiet of your own mind. From the raw candidate on the asphalt to the quiet veteran trying to find his way, the path through the SEAL teams is a ladder of escalating sacrifice. There is no simple worst or best tier. The worst is the suffering of the candidate. The best might be the capability of the Tier 1 operator. But the hardest is often the quiet struggle of the veteran. Each level demands a piece of you. It's a cycle that repeats as the next class of young men stands on that same line in Coronado, ready to find out the cost for themselves. What part of this journey, from the physical to the psychological, do you believe is the most difficult? Let us know in the comments.